Hey, welcome to the first episode of. I forgot it already. Let's start again.
Unscripted.
Yeah,
Street talk with Mark and Flavio.
terrible, isn't it? Getting
Yeah.
old. That's the problem, you see. So yeah, unscripted street talk with Mark and Flavio. So
Okay.
yeah, we're just going to talk today about what is street photography, because everyone's got a different opinion of it. What's your opinion of it, Flavio? I mean,
Well, street photography is candid photography shot in a public place. Let's say that is the best way to summarize it. Street is kind of a name that probably doesn't fit it completely, because you can shoot it off the street, you can shoot it in a museum, you can shoot it in a park, you can shoot it anywhere you like. It's more of a mindset on how you shoot the photography, I think.
yeah, I totally get that. I mean, I come from a sort of old school background, I think, really, and I'm more like a Cartier-Bresson, and I like to find a great background, stay there all day, being pretty lazy, really. Whereas other people like to go and hunt for stuff, but I like to find a great background and just stay there, and I think you can get some great shots from that sort of thing. I mean, it's typical Cartier-Bresson. And I always remember, one of the courses I did a long time ago in India, and one of the guys, I mean, I never meet people generally before the courses, but I met at the airport a guy come on the street photography course, and he was walking with crutches.
Mm-hmm.
And a bit of panic set through me, really, because I'm thinking, this is India, and India's a pretty difficult place to get around. And his name was Alan, and he just said to me, look, he says, don't worry, he says, just deliver me to the place. And he said, I'm not bothered if you go off all day, he said, but just collect me at the end of it. And we kind of did that. We got around, and we went to these places, and Alan went to one place and he stayed there pretty much like 3-4 hours at a time. And we'd then move on, and he'd then stay at another place for another couple of hours. And at the end of the week, we were going through everyone's photographs, and it kind of really hit home, because we looked at, there's 8 people on the course, and we had 5 photographs each, and we whistled it down and down and down to the best 10 on the course, and Alan had 6 of them. And it's because he became invisible in this location, he was part of the scene. So that's kind of why I like the Cartier-Bresson.
Well, that
type
doesn't
approach.
surprise me, because you have the time to start refining the composition, start trying to find your anchor points in the composition, and getting to know what's going to happen, what the repetition of the plays are going to be, and it really gets you to know the frame so much better. And as you said, you just do become invisible, and people don't mind you anymore. And that's the best thing in street photography, which is another big contention among street photographers. Somebody looking at your camera, somebody being aware of you or not being aware, and some street photographers don't even like having any subjects being aware of the camera in their shots, and being there for a long time, it just gets you invisible.
I must admit, I'm a big fan of people not looking at the camera, and having them interact with each other and looking for that decisive moment. And it's funny, you can watch those decisive moments anywhere, even if you're not out taking photographs. Quite often, if you just sit in a cafe and just people watch, and you'll be amazed how much people sort of interact with their hands, and it's amazing how much people don't look at each other, but you want to wait till that moment comes where they actually do look at each other, because there's that eye contact between 2 people, or there's that hand movement, that justification, where people sort of are just making movements to each other, and that's kind of like the key point, or the high point of the photograph that you want to capture, and it's kind of like that Cartier-Bresson thing, like the decisive moment.
This is another part of what street photography is. A lot of street photographers talk about the gesture as one of the main things that you need to look in a street photograph. And that's exactly what you're talking about, the gesture, the situation, something that gets that bit more interest in the photograph. Having said that, there are other photographers that are doing it in a completely different way. So let's say Bruce Gilden in New York, one of those street photographers that shoot in a completely different way to what you just mentioned. He just is on the pavement, either walking towards people or just waiting for people that are flowing around him, and just gets in your face, shoots with a flash, getting you unawares of the shot, and it just gets these very, very close-up pictures of people with startled faces, and he just looks for very interesting people. It's a very, very different way of taking photographs. And or you think about one of the very famous founders of the street photography style as we know it nowadays in New York again, John Marowitz. He was just staying another great photographer. He was staying at a street junction and just waiting for the flow of people coming around him, and waiting for something to coalesce in front of him, a decisive moment, a set of people, set of things, associations, let's say things that could work together, things that would not look like they can work together, but the street photographer finds a way to frame the image and finds the moment that can actually create a connection between things, and he would just shoot things as they were coming to him instead of just sitting in front of a scene and making it come together.
Do you think a lot of it is to do with the type of person that you are as a street photographer? And the reason I say that is I think, with Bruce Gilden, you've got to be quite ballsy. And I don't feel comfortable personally doing that. I've been out with photographers that do it, and you've got to be confrontational, and you're going to get people saying, "You just take my photograph," because you are literally in their face. I mean, I don't know exactly his technique, but I believe he shoots with a Leica, a wide angle lens,
I think
a flash.
he shoots with a 24.
Okay,
and
so
a
pretty wide
flash.
and it's fixed focus, so he's
But
predetermined.
it's that close when he shoots you.
And it's like all of a sudden it's like bang, this flash goes off in your face. So the exposure is kind of always the same. I think the Scottish photographer Dougie Wallace, I think he does pretty much the same sort of thing, and great images. I mean, I love Doug's book on Knightsbridge. I think it's absolutely great that the characters he's kind of captured, and I think he's done one around Soho as well. And again, some beautiful images he's taken. Personally, I just don't feel comfortable doing that, and I like to sort of sit back and look for the story and build wait for that great image. And I think going back to Cartier-Bresson, who he's the doyen of street photographers. He was the first person that we sort of was recognised as capturing sort of great images out and about. And I think if you actually look and study his images in the books, it's quite obvious that he actually found a great backdrop and waited there for his subject to come into it.
He built his photographs.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And he had such a great eye for geometry and for the compositional, let's say, tools to really get you right, to concentrate on things. And he had a painter's background that allowed him to actually have that kind of knowledge. But
he's looking at the background, and again, a lot of photographers look at the subject, but I always think it's as important to look at the background, because you don't want distracting elements in the background, and it's the difference between your image being good and sublime is having those elements that come together, but also a backdrop that kind of fits in perfectly and things not growing out of people's heads and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that what you're talking about exactly is a point of critique for me, or criticism for me, for many of these pictures that you see around, that lots of people look for the moment, but very few look at the background and look at where that moment is happening. They don't move themselves or the camera to improve that moment as fast as quick as you need to be to take that picture. You can still train yourself to do it a little bit better.
I think it's absolutely, on a lot of the courses that we run and that I've sort of critiqued in the past, is we go quite hard on some people. It just depends on their experience. If they're a relative beginner at photography, or whether they're experienced, I try and critique it based on what their experience is. But it's amazing the amount of people that don't look at the background, but then afterwards go like, wow, and they're all there afterwards sort of thinking, look at that in the background, look at that background. And so the learning experience is quite immense. But Cartier-Bresson's my favourite photographer.
Mine too.
Yeah, I have one of his images at home. That, you know, when I come out of my bedroom, I kind of can see every morning. It's a great inspiration. Love his books. I'm a big collector of his books. You know, I know you collect some books as well.
Yes. Yeah. Certainly, the Decisive Moment of Cartier-Bresson is one of my main books. Yes.
But go back to sort of Joel. So, you know, what do you think Joel's technique is? How does he sort of capture those images of people just walking towards him? Because it is a completely different technique to what Cartier-Bresson uses.
Completely different. Yeah, I think it is almost like a specialty that you get into. It's getting so good at seeing what is happening in front of you and seeing what might come together. Almost like looking into the future in for a few seconds, and knowing that you can position yourself in a certain way. You can duck and weave to get your camera in the right place, to then seeing everything coalesce together and just getting that particular shot. And it's also true that he was on those streets every single day, all day. And I think it was at Fifth Avenue that he was just walking back and forth all the time, every day. So he knew the place very well. He knew where the best places were. He knew how to get those backgrounds, etc. Although some of his best shots don't have great backgrounds, because at times the moment happens and you can't just get the background better.
I think it's a great point you made about being in the vicinity or shooting a project on the same street or in the same location, because again it's something that I see quite regularly, you know, on courses that a photographer say, well, I've been there and I've done that, and yet you could walk up and down. For example, if you're doing him in Soho in London, you could walk around the block all day and it would be constantly changing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's the way of building up, you know, a great set of images within a location and trying to tell a story about a particular area or a particular sort of, you know, subject or something that's happening, going on, is that you keep revisiting it. Actually, a few years ago, I embarked on a project at Speaker's Corner, and I kept going back there literally week after week, and I did it, I think, for like 10, 15 weeks, maybe even more. I did it over almost a year, and just to build up a great sort of body of work. And ultimately at the end of it, I ended up with, I think, like 15 or 20 really, really good pictures. One of the downsides of that was that I actually became recognised by the speakers. And so they were coming up and talking to me and saying, hi, how you doing, or what are you doing up here, and can we see the pictures?
That's a bit of a drawback.
Which
for
is
a
a bit of
photographer.
Yeah, absolutely. I did share some of them. I would take up some on an iPad and I would show it to them, because obviously it got their buy-in of what I was doing. It's not strictly pure street photography, although it is street photography. And this is going back to the same sort of thing. What is street photography? Absolutely. But I was building up a project over a fair time, and ultimately, you know, you'd show those people the images, and then they'd just go back to doing what they're doing, and almost going back to the story about Alan, and it's you're fitting in, and you become unobtrusive or invisible in the scene, and so you can just get on and get those great photographs.
Absolutely.
But that's I think that's it for today. Big thumbs up, and subscribe, because we'll be doing another one very shortly, another sort of unscripted on the sofa. I hope you like the format. Let us know, give us some comments, feedback. We'd love to hear from you, and we really look forward to seeing you soon. So it's goodbye from Mark, and
goodbye from Flavio.
See you soon. Bye bye.